Hi folks, when to quit your day job, or rather talking about some of the things you should think about if you're pursuing starting up a machine shop or an entrepreneurial endeavor, but you've got something else going on in your life that maybe gives you some stability or a sense of a career. We offered our own insights. I wanted to ask some folks that I look up to and I think have had really good experiences to share unvarnished what was their experience, what's their opinion, and maybe what's some advice. So I'm sitting down today with Jon from Area 419. If you haven't seen the shop tours that we've done, it's an awesome story that we've been able to follow kind of along the way with their growth. Would you mind introducing yourself, who Area 419 is, and maybe some of your backstory? And you had a career, you had a job. Talk us through that.
I'm Jon Addis with Area 419 out of Grand Rapids, Ohio, now Delta, Ohio. We are a premier builder of precision rifle accessories as well as precision rifles themselves. We just recently moved into a new 18,000 square foot shop out of my backyard where we resided for 4 years now. I attended the University of Toledo for bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I worked at Gainer Mountain while I was going to school.
Okay.
Didn't really drive my love for firearms. It was already there. That was kind of why I worked there, mostly to get the discounts on stuff. After that, I started working for a medical device company in Bryan, Ohio called Davlin. They make UV phototherapy equipment.
Okay.
I was a design engineer there. Did a lot of improvements on current machines and designing a new machine. Had a pretty good gig there.
This is your first job out of college?
Yes, I would say that was my first real job. That was my first engineering job.
Yep. And so, it's a big company,
fairly large, 15 million a year, something like that size company. I was the only mechanical engineer.
Oh wow.
There was an electrical engineer, but small enough that at the time, especially, they've grown a lot since then, but small enough at the time that I was the only engineer, which was nice. Although I didn't get some of the experience that comes with working in a bigger company, that might have been good. But
so you're there, you graduate college, you get this job, you're working there for some period of time as an engineer, good job, and then you decide to start tinkering?
I was working there. I worked there for 4 or 5 years. I started out actually not as an engineer there, started out as a traveling service technician, traveling around the country, just installing and repairing their machines, and then moved into the engineering role. And all the while, Area 419, the business existed, mostly just to have an FFL. So back then it was just the more hobby side of things, building 5 or 10 rifles a year for buddies and maybe some unknown customers, but no semblance of what it is today. Strictly a hobby at that point. It wasn't until 2016 that it started to become more of a real business with the development of the Hellfire brake and realizing that it was going to be a popular product. That was when the decision to jump ship from a day job, security, all that kind of stuff, to where I would call the real start of Area 419 as you know it today. I do remember while I was trying to decide whether to quit my job, thinking I make pretty good money. I didn't make 6 figures, but I made pretty good money as an engineer. How on earth am I going to pay the salary that I make now or anywhere even close to it to support a family and all that stuff? And we didn't have kids at that point yet, but it was on the horizon. So
you're married?
Married, own a house, no kids at that point, just the dog. And it was hard to see, even in the future, how I would get back to that. And I knew I would take a huge pay cut to start the business as a full-time job. But I did know that it would have to happen in order for anything to grow. So I don't know that I probably could have gone, and I see other people that were probably in my shoes and stuck it out longer than I did. But I wouldn't change that. I probably jumped in earlier than I actually needed to.
Okay.
But it kind of goes along with buying machines. If you're buying a machine because you need it, it's too late.
Yep.
Almost the same thing goes for quitting your job, because so much of your time needs to be dedicated to growing the business that if you're working 8 hours a day and you're just doing this at night, on the weekends there's just not enough hours, especially if you have a family where you're having to balance that whole life. So when I quit my job, it was, at first, I didn't really know what I was going to do all day because there wasn't enough to keep me busy, but that allowed me to find things to do to fill my time, which was design new products and all those things. So that's probably the best advice I can give is don't quit your job too early, because you need to be able to support it financially if the business isn't self-supporting yet. But if you wait too long, you're really going to hinder yourself.
It's that unspoken opportunity cost of not letting yourself do what you plan on being good at, right?
Exactly.
Developing products.
Yeah.
Can we drive into the details of that? So what year would have this have been when you issued the first PO for muzzle brakes for the Hellfire?
Late 2016.
Okay, so you had your barn, you had some manual equipment. Had you bought the TM? Was it the TM2P?
TM2P, yeah.
So you owned a Haas machine. Was it important that you were employed to get the financing for that machine?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I bought that machine almost as a hobby because I wanted to learn about CNC machining. So it was purchased solely with the idea of doing barrel fluting. Because at the time, all I was doing was rifle builds.
Okay.
So I wanted to do my own barrel fluting, not because I knew it would save me money, because no way would it have saved me money. I didn't do that much. I just wanted to learn how to do it, and I knew I could afford it with the job that I had.
Right.
So the machine didn't have to pay for itself.
Right.
That was important. Where if I would have bought that machine without a job and it had to support itself, it would have been a lot more stressful.
Are you a numbers guy? Like, do you look at hey, I got to sell this many Hellfires, and I got to do this many barrels, and my wife's down my throat about how are we going to make ends meet? Is that your approach?
Maybe I used to be, and not necessarily down to the details of that. I just knew it was always just, we need to sell more.
Okay.
And there wasn't a target in mind necessarily. It was just, I don't know, I think there was enjoyment on my side, and I think Craig's side as well. Just how far can we push this? It's exciting to watch something grow, especially on social media now, and they really throttle us back, and it's annoying as the company that we are, but back in that day, it was exciting to watch it grow. You could just see the development. It's more organic. You're not
right.
publishing magazine ads and waiting for it to come back. It's somebody buys something, they talk about it on Facebook, and more people buy it. And it's just this compounding of word of mouth advertising. So
it feels like the right way to do it, which is, again, we could go down a different rabbit hole of the algorithms and industry concerns, but that's a feeling I can't begin to convey as an entrepreneur, is when somebody's willing to exchange their money for your product and then do that numerous times a week or a day. It's just, you can feed off that energy.
Yeah, and it's not the money side of it at all. It's not that, oh, I'm making more money now, that's great. It's that I'm selling more product.
Right.
People are appreciating the product for what it is. They're buying it over another product because it's better.
Right.
That's, like you said, it's contagious, and it's exciting. So
you had issued a PO to another machine shop, though, and that was while you still had your job?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, probably 2 purchase orders to a local machine shop while I was still working.
Okay.
At my job. So.
And to be annoying, with the benefit of hindsight, should you have bought a lathe sooner and not done that, or do you like that idea?
No, I wouldn't change anything there. I probably would have been hamstringed by it. I would have tried to keep up and not been able to, and thus not had product in stock.
Got it.
Where this machine shop had a ton of capability, or capacity, I should say.
Right.
So at that time, no matter how many I ordered, they could keep up.
Yeah.
Later in the game, we even grew beyond their capacity to where we're selling more than they can produce in a timely manner. So, which is why the decision to bring those in-house finally, now that we have the space and the resources to do so.
I think there's two awesome takeaways from that. Number one is we've heard from folks that say, well, if I outsource it, it costs me too much money. And I think that really begs the question of, well, then do you have an adequate margin in this product to justify what it's worth in the industry place and what it's worth for you to go pursue this? The second is, it's okay to let other people help you out. It doesn't have to be long term.
Yeah, especially when you're developing the product in its infancy. It might not make sense. Yeah, you can make another 10, 20 points of margin, but if you can't keep up with it, or if it slows you down from doing other things, just let somebody else make it. Take a hit on that margin for a while. It'll help you grow, because you give them a drawing and you forget about it, and then you just issue POs.
Right.
So it's definitely fun to make things in-house and do everything yourself, but you don't always have to do everything, especially right away.
Do you think you had a solid advantage because your engineering background meant you could actually do a properly dimensioned drawing and thus work with a shop maybe a little better than somebody who's new to manufacturing, new to engineering, new to machining, et cetera?
Yeah, I would say so. I think the design side of things, and I was new, when I started that job, I was new to Autodesk Inventor.
Okay.
I'd never used it before. I'd really never used any kind of 3D drawing, because when I was going through college, that kind of stuff was still somewhat new.
Really?
And they didn't teach it all that well.
What year did you graduate college?
In 2010. I don't want to say it was new, but
okay.
I don't remember what the software was that we even learned on, but
okay.
It was more 2D stuff, just
interesting.
Autodesk, AutoCAD.
Yeah, sure.
And, so
that seems like, I mean, AutoCAD has its point, but I mean, I just think it seems like an antiquated dinosaur for the modern manufacturing world of solid modeling.
Yeah. So having that knowledge of 3D modeling was definitely a benefit, and being able to give them a model, not just a drawing, that they could work off of. That was a benefit, that machine shop worked that way. Some machine shops, you try to give them a 3D model and they say, what's this? I can't even open it.
Right.
But giving them a dimension drawing for QC purposes, it was an advantage to knowing how to do that ahead of time.
Did you know this shop, or as a no man, how did you convince them to take a PO
This is actually kind of a funny story. So when I was looking for that TM2P, this machine shop was actually selling I think it was a TM1 on eBay, and I saw that the location was a town close to me. So I called them up and asked them if I could come look at the machine, and they gave me a tour of the shop, and we just got to talking about the Hellfire, and they said, oh yeah, we can make those, no problem. So I think that was when I went home and started getting together drawings and sent them a RFQ. And so definitely kind of interesting how I found out about them, because I didn't know of any real machine shops at the time, because I hadn't done things like that before. So it would have been a struggle maybe to find somebody had that not just kind of naturally happened.
I love it too, because sometimes the key in life when you're working with somebody, or not negotiating per se, but let them come up with the idea. Meaning you go meet them to look at a machine and they're saying, well, we take a look at making that part for you. And all of a sudden it's their idea instead of you just lobbing out RFQs, which, that's what job shops do, but there's always a different feel behind how you approach those.
Yeah, and it's good to have, I think sometimes on the engineering side of things, you might over-tolerance stuff.
No.
Which
really
hurts you.
Sure.
And it's something that I didn't even know at the time, that like, obviously I want to put as tight a tolerance on this thing as I possibly can, but if you don't need it, don't do it, because it's going to cost you money. And they were forthcoming enough to tell me that, instead of just saying, oh, well, we're going to charge you a bunch more money for these. So they would kind of work through that with me, and that was really helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Getting some real world experience under your belt of bringing I wouldn't call the Hellfire a simple product, but it's certainly not dozens of mechanical assemblies that interface with each other, where, like the Zero Press, it's beautiful, but I can't even imagine how many things have to be right on that to work.
Yeah.
Got it. The fun thing about Jon is there's actually like a rumor around here, or kind of a joke, that Jon continues to quit his day job. And you can talk more about that, but I think it's probably like the best thing about being a good entrepreneur is that willingness to recognize what you do it well, build processes, build systems, and then hand it off.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, like I've said at other times, it's a lot of the key to our growth is there's this hard cap of how much one person can do. And you're just not going to make it past that. So you have to be able to give up control. So the first thing I'd say I quit was making my own website, which I made on GeoCities. And,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I handed off that control to Craig, and then that relationship grew, and he worked on the side and then came in full time. And then from there was the CNC machining. I was doing the design, the programming, the prototyping, and then all the way down to I was changing parts as we were making them, and I realized this isn't where my time is best spent. So I hired Justin to start changing parts, and he then quit that job to take on more important things in the company. And like you said, it just keeps happening. And then I never in a million years would have thought that I would hire another mechanical engineer, because that's my ball game. I don't want to give up that control, but here we are. 6 months ago, we hired a full-time mechanical engineer to support me in my daily tasks and just take that workload off. So I guess you can't be afraid to give up some control. It's hard, and you're not going to want to give it all up, and you don't have to, but you definitely need to give up enough that people can help you if you want to be able to grow and be successful.
Do you, I mean, it's your company, you're the leader, do you come to these realizations to quit another job on your own, or do you have people that push you or challenge you to think about this stuff?
I think early on, yeah, I kind of made the decision on my own that it had to happen, but now I've got people telling me what we might need, because maybe I don't see everything that goes on day to day like I used to. I used to sit in the office where all the shipping was done. That was my office, so it was annoying, but it was also good at the same time that all this was going on around me. I saw everything happening. I don't see that stuff anymore. So if we need to hire another assembly person, I would have no idea.
Right.
So I rely on other people to make those decisions, and more operators. We rely on our higher end, or
Justin, your operations guy?
Yeah, they have the pulse for what we need as far as more employees there than I do. So yeah, you definitely have to be able to. But
does anybody ever say to you, John, you got to stop doing this? Like, you got to. Does anybody have to save you from yourself, or are you pretty comfortable recognizing when it's time to say, nope, we need some help here?
I think there's probably a combination. People telling me that I don't need to be doing that, but yeah. I'm still going to do it. I'm still out in the shop modifying stuff that I really shouldn't be doing, but you're not going to get away from that, and there's enjoyment in that, so you don't want to lose touch of everything to where all you're doing is running the business. Right. I don't ever want to get to that point.
Yeah, so, it's not about the money. It's not about...
I don't want to just own this company and not come in and do things and just collect a paycheck. I enjoy seeing it grow and doing all the things that I did early on still. I just do maybe less of them so I can do other things that are more important.
We'll play with all the new toys.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap up with sort of the question, which is when you ultimately made that decision to go to your boss or your employer and say, hey, I really enjoyed it, but I'm moving on. Your family, your wife, your parents, whomever, the close loved ones around you, was it support, good to go? Did they believe in you? Was it still a lot of anxiety? Was it nervous that day to quit?
I think by the time the decision was made, I think it was in full support from everybody around me. So that made it easier. I didn't really have anybody fighting me on it. But it was just stressful leading up to even up to the day of having to tell the owner of the company that I was working at that I was leaving, because he was a great boss, treated me well, treated all the employees well, so I didn't want to hurt his feelings and all that stuff. But when it came down to it, I sat down with him and talked about it, and he was in full support and said he'd do whatever he needed to do to help me through that path. So there
Wow.
was
So you told him about what you had been doing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And had we been in a competing industry, that probably would have been a different different story. But yeah, it was great to have even the support of the guy I was quitting a job at.
Yeah, that's
So-
huge. That's great.
And even Justin, my director of operations, worked with me at that company, and I stole him from them. There wasn't even animosity at that point.
Wow.
They fully supported the decision that Justin was going to be required to help me grow. So that was definitely helpful, and I can see that being a sticking point for. It's not always going to be like that,
Right.
but
Right.
you don't necessarily need their support. It's good to have, but
Right.
don't let that stop you from doing what really needs to be done.
When I was taking an entrepreneurship class in college, one of our tasks, we had to go interview an entrepreneur. And you're in college, you're trying to learn as much as you can. But I think, as you and I have talked about a lot, sometimes advice is very contextual. But I vividly remember having lunch with this guy, and his advice was, you need to go work for somebody. And when you're in college and you're gung-ho and you're thinking, hey, we're going to go invent this product and we're just going to crush it, we're never going to have a day job. And that advice didn't mean to me what it does now, which is how much you can learn from working for a good boss. So you said something interesting of your former employer took care of their employees. That's certainly something we see here. I got to think there's a correlation of lessons you learned and money you saved, helping get to here.
Those are things that you just can't learn if you start day one as on your own.
Right.
So I definitely value and at least working a job for a while, and as long as you can to support what you do.
I want to thank Jon and the whole team at Area 419 for sharing their story. Otherwise, folks, I hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. Take care. See you soon.